Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Media day expert, but I am excited. You listen. I know you're a Nittany Lion.
I am, but I've tried to take on the SEC culture down here.
So what? So who's your adopted SEC team?
Tennessee.
Tennessee?
Go Vols.
Really?
Yeah.
Any particular reason why? That's terrible.
Okay, so it's kind of split a little bit. See, I'm not a diehard SEC fan either way, so I kind of shape shift a little.
Okay.
Toby, can you come out and fix Lou's camera just a little?
Even if I slouch,
So-
I look like I'm balding. It's all right.
I like it.
Yeah.
I lived down in Oklahoma City for a couple years, so I'm also an Oklahoma Sooners fan.
Sure.
But they're new to the SEC, right? They were a Big 12 team
That's a good point.
for however many years. So since they're new, my original SEC team is the Tennessee Volunteers.
Okay.
Primarily just because when I was a young buck, fresh out of college, I interviewed in Knoxville at a station.
That's cool.
And I had considered taking on the Volunteers as my own team, but
Ross, nobody's perfect, buddy.
Yeah, that was not the way things happened, and here we are.
Here we are in the land of the gator. Yeah, it's tough being a chicken in a kind of the gator house, but that's okay. We make it work in a gamecock. Yeah, so let's talk about what we were seeing there on satellite. So a lot going on here locally today, but then again, so much happening just off the coast, the east coast of Florida. So the beautiful image there, we're seeing the thunderstorms popping just west of the 95 corridor. They're on satellite. And now, of course, taking a look at our latest from the National Hurricane Center, what could potentially become a depression soon. I know it's saying 20% chance of development over the next 48 hours. That's the top number, so the next 2 days. And then over the next 7 days, 30% chance of development somewhere in that yellow area, that hatched area. And Ross, this has changed a considerable amount, which kind of has me furling my eyebrow a little bit about the potential of this becoming a depression, that X'd area, before it actually crosses the state of Florida. Because, we were looking at this map yesterday, and it did not include the Atlantic waters at all. So,
and when they had first put it out right over the weekend, it did, and then they shrunk it down a good bit. It was just the Gulf. Now as of 8 a.m. this morning, they extended it back over most of Florida and then into the western Atlantic there.
Yeah, so it would not surprise me if a depression were officially kind of declared here with this, what is now an invest, of course, so things to watch. I was watching to see if they were going to fly some recon missions into this. I hadn't seen any yet. And when they do that, that would tell you the switch is probably going to get flipped pretty soon. What are we seeing here, Ross?
Well, I mean, obviously just a lot of convection out of this, tropical wave over the northern Bahamas, the south portion of Florida from, West Palm Beach over to Fort Myers, Miami, Delray Beach, where our very own Anthony Austin is currently down there this afternoon.
Go find him.
But then also right over I-95 and really now the Highway 301 corridor. You look across northeast Florida, southeast Georgia, look at those clouds just explode. Over, I think this is about a 3-hour satellite loop. So it goes from nothing initially and then just boom, they all fire up. And we have seen a large amount of heavy rain and thunderstorm activity now here across, most of the First Coast.
I want to give a round of applause to Melbourne and their radar site, just getting it back online, hustling up, because that radar, that picture right there would be a lot different if we didn't have the Melbourne radar sight up. It's given us a really good look at the convection, the thunderstorms, trying to get going around that area of low pressure. That Melbourne radar site had a lightning strike, knocked them offline, but they hustled and they got it back going again. It's tough, and currently the Jacksonville radar site's even going through some maintenance. So we got a network, right, and it helps us track. But you got to have at least a couple. You got to have the Valdosta, you got to have Melbourne, you got to have Tampa. Somebody looking, even Charleston.
I was just going to ask: is Charleston the next closest to our north?
I would think so. Yeah. Yeah, and Charleston, gets us at least a look. It's high up, but it gives us something at least to work with. And that we do have a severe thunderstorm warning, and that is West Nassau. So Hilliard, Callahan, as this drifts down here over the next 24 minutes, we've seen radar-indicated reports of 60-mile-an-hour winds. I've seen penny-sized hail being reported with this. So that can do a little bit of denting to those F-150s and your Silverados, old boys out on Highway 1. Let us be careful.
Those trucks have been through worse.
They have. They get that worse on the dirt roads heading out towards the Okefenokee. So
when I first pulled up this snapshot of the storm core, strongest portion was over Hilliard.
Yep.
That has now since changed, kind of pulsed up much more over St. George and southern Charlton County.
Sure.
And that'll really be the trend here, I think, through most of this evening. One storm may be stronger initially. That might actually put a little bit of an outflow and surge ahead into the storm ahead of it, and could almost kind of like backfill, give some extra juice on the back side of some of these, or the northern extent of some of these storms. And then they also explode and fire up a little bit more there. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing here right now.
And the story with these storms, so Ross mentioned at the beginning, Highway 301, and boy howdy, are we lined up with 301. So west of 95, west of the St. Johns River even. So the 301 corridor is what we're going to be watching for the rest of our kind of evening broadcasts for the main strongest storms from southeast Georgia all the way down towards Baker, Bradford, Union.
I think this is
counties.
just going to take us right down the line here over the next couple.
I like it. So much lightning, and that is certainly. So Western Glen. If you're in Brunswick, you're absolutely hearing the thunder, but it's staying pretty west of 95, but this lightning is just nothing to joke around with. I mean, we've seen the reports, we've seen the stories. What happened tragically in Ware County, what happened St. Augustine Beach. So we gotta be cognizant that these lightning strikes, and if you look out away from the storm, I mean, they happen outside of the storm center. So don't get so caught up on, I'm under the downpour. The downpour has ended. No, it's the edges that some of the most powerful lightning strikes actually occur many times on the back end of these things. So if you're hearing the thunder, even after you've heard the last rumble of thunder, give it 30 minutes.
And I had mentioned that last week even.
Yeah.
Sometimes, people are waiting to get outside, take their dog for a walk or something in the evening, right?
Yep.
I know I'm guilty of this at times.
Yep.
And it looks like the storm has, passed by. But in reality, it's probably not safe yet. You need to wait a little bit longer until that storm, moves off more than 5 miles, 10 miles away.
Sure.
To really start to clear from that lightning threat. Because, you're right. It's very surprising how far away from the actual core of the storm lightning can still strike.
And we're seeing, so this is the severe storm warning. Wouldn't be surprised if we get that kind of extended down through southern Charlton into Baker County with that storm that's really pulsing with all that lightning. But looking just to the west, you're seeing the outflows from these storms could very easily start sparking some more because we got the moisture out there. And it is soupy.
And if you look kind of just at the mesoscale level, there is a very narrow band of higher instability, pretty much in between, I would say, Highway 17 and I would maybe halfway out to Lake City. I'm not sure what would be another good road in between 301 and 75 to use. There's not a whole lot of major roads that go north to south there.
Right.
But slightly higher moisture content, the wind potential or the downburst, microburst, damaging wind gust threat a little bit higher in that window, and that's exactly where these storms are pretty much streaming down through. Of course, the storms themselves want to be where the heat and moisture and energy are at. That's what keeps them alive, keeps them fueled up, and that's certainly what we're seeing here right now the whole way down the 301 corridor. So this is going to be a trend over the next couple of hours, Lou. But it does look like after, let's say, dinner time tonight, and especially after sunset, most of the convection and thunderstorm activity going to be well west of Jacksonville, and we'll have pushed closer to the I-75 corridor in contrast to the 95 corridor here.
So kind of looking ahead, we've gone through our Monday. Let's go into Tuesday. Still kind of rolling with our weather impact alert for a Tuesday afternoon, sort of a similar kind of window. We're going to think after lunch, heat of the day, certainly have the heat, the humidity in place. Now, kind of jostling with a little dry slot that's going to try to work in, and timing seems to be early morning is the drier air, but precipitable water wants to jump, at least with modeling, back up to that 2-inch and above range by Tuesday afternoon. But this particular model, as that low is going to eventually late Tuesday into Wednesday cross the peninsula. So with that, pumping in a little bit, maybe some tropically enhanced thunderstorms as we go through our Tuesday afternoon. And we were showing some of our southern counties, which would make sense. So Clay, Putnam, and St. John's will watch. Certainly, winds are a story. They're not the big story with the depression necessarily. If a depression were to form, 20 to 25 mile an hour gusts we're seeing there along some of the southern beaches, so St. Augustine Beach, but even up towards, look at Brunswick starting to register. This has the center more north, doesn't it?
Yeah, this brings it much further north, which I believe this is our in-house model here.
Yeah. So we're looking at the graph. So and that's been consistent. The graph, our in-house model has wanted the center to be north of I-4 even, and that
which is kind of the outlier.
Yeah, it is. Euro GF has a little more southern track, and we'll talk kind of the future tropical potential with the system in a moment. As far as northerly track versus more southerly track, more time spent in the Gulf waters, et cetera. But as we look through the week, we have enhanced kind of moisture just because of what's going on in the tropics, just kind of heightened awareness with our weather impact alert, very similar to what we're getting today. Some widely scattered numerous showers and thunderstorms. Within these, you could get some 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts. The severe threat for Tuesday and Wednesday, maybe not quite as high as what we were seeing today. And by Thursday, it really does look like this will be more of a Gulf system and more of a Gulf side story. And for us, things begin to improve, at least what we're talking about in terms of more tropical moisture. So the main need, what I want you to kind of focus on these next couple days, have your First Coast News app handy, download it, turn on your notifications and your location. That way, you're away from the TV, you're away from the house or wherever you maybe, even FCN Plus. We can get it to your phone and let you know when these things go severe, because the potential for strong to severe is still there, while a little bit lower the next couple of days. But just those pop-ups that can kind of mess with the evening commutes, so we'll watch that very carefully until this system is boogied on out a little bit further to the west.
And talking about some strong to severe, we have not the Protector out today, but one of our captains of the Protector, so to speak. Our photographer Adrian is out there at Trinity Christian,
nice,
giving you a look at some of those storms moving away, off to the west sides there.
Outstanding. So beautiful spot to be. A good setup. We got the drone in the sky. Love it. And great look at that thunderstorm. This would be the one pointed more towards St. George.
Yeah.
And with all that lightning, so we'll see if we catch those pops of lightning with this wide view. But we're certainly getting a lot of strikes.
And it's very ominous looking. I know when I drove in to work today, that was when the storms were first starting to pop a little bit. It was actually right over the 95 and 295 interchange up near the airport, and then it worked its way over downtown. It started out as just a single cell, and within 30 minutes, that thing blew up and continued to push off to the south, eventually actually turning into a severe thunderstorm warning over Clay County and even western St. John's earlier today. But it's impressive just how much moisture and heat and instability there actually is in the atmosphere. Today and over the next couple of days, as Lew just kind of talked about, that we're going to see some pretty strong storms, many of which are going to be able to produce very hefty rainfall rates and potential rainfall totals. Now, I'll have it at the end. If you average out the rain over the entire area, most of us will average between, I would say, 1 to 2, perhaps 3 inches over the next 4 to 5 days, maybe, if that, maybe over the next 3 days.
Right.
But locally, some spots could pick up 4 or 5 inches of rain easily. Just not everyone is, of course, going to see that, right, Lou?
So, right. And these folks, so we're looking at I-10. You mentioned it, kind of looking high above Trinity, so off Hammond. And so if you were driving west, so, talk about impacting commutes. Getting on I-10 is a little squirrely, but it's a kind of a thin stretch. But again, with the outflow kind of building out a bit and expanding out towards McClenny. So with this particular storm, we're talking about the potential for radar indicated winds of 50 miles an hour, frequent lightning. We are looking at McClenny, Glen St. Mary, Sanderson, Maxville, Baldwin. So heads up there if you're kind of in those towns or in the vicinity, or you're going to be driving through there on 10. So this is really looking at those wind gusts, but also just torrential rainfall if you get under it. Now, you may be driving under it for a couple of miles and it's over, but nonetheless, you got to be very careful underneath that through your driving on I-10.
Of course, we have the heavy rainfall risk today, but of course that's going to continue into tomorrow as well. Especially for our northeast Florida counties throughout the afternoon as that low begins to move on shore. Even despite, perhaps the early morning dry slot that we could see, that tropical-like air mass is going to swing on in, and whether there's some remaining effects from that dry air, I think that gets overrun very, very quickly by tomorrow afternoon. And we'll certainly have very good chance to see some pretty heavy rain, even heavier rain further south. I think if I can take it back just a click. So you got that slight risk over Tampa and Orlando. So Central Florida definitely has a better chance to see more widespread rain, heavy rain over the entire area, in contrast to, southeast Georgia and northeast Florida here on the First Coast.
Yeah, so think about that for your traveling. So you got the midweek, you got a long week off, maybe you're turning into a little Orlando trip. It's summertime in Florida, and of course you're traveling down to Disney or Universal. You just got to go across I-4. It's a little elevated against those typical Florida afternoon thunderstorms. So that slight risk of getting the flash flooding potential, especially along the I-4 corridor and south out and then out towards Tampa, got to keep that in mind as well. And so
I want to just talk a little bit, what the ingredients. Why do we think there's a potential, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And this is certainly going to be one of them. Northern Gulf, very, very warm. Especially even compared to average for this time of the year.
Yep. And the Atlantic, not so much. It's kind of it's interesting how it is flip-flop. Even Colorado State sort of dropping their forecast by maybe one or two storms because of Atlantic, just kind of the anomaly year over year being a tick lower, but that Gulf side is bathwater. I mean, we're pushing 90. Key West, you got an 89 degree sea surface temperature. And you talk about sea surface temperatures, but you get down a meter or two, and it's still warm. So some of that water that gets churned up, it can still fuel these storms. So this is a great look at why this system, while it could potentially become a depression on the East Coast, by the time it gets in the Gulf, and truly the orientation of where it comes off the coast of Florida on the west side is going to matter how strong this thing gets in a short amount of time. Looking at your tropical wind shear right now, certainly not the most favorable for getting any big development just off of our coast as far as becoming a tropical storm. In fact, the tropical storm potential next to 0% if you look at some of the ensembles, at least on the east coast side. So that's at least a benefit. Smaller chances for depression. But by the time you get into that mid-Gulf, you're going to start to see a little more favorable conditions for more stronger tropical development.
And the overall steering flow, right? So those wind barbs, or the wind streamlines that you're seeing there, that's the jet stream and the 250 millibar. So your upper level winds steering it west away from the First Coast, hence why by Thursday and Friday, our impacts locally here are pretty much going to be non-existent. So this is going to become much more of a problem for those along the northern Gulf, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, even, by Wednesday and Thursday and towards the end of the week. But yeah, at least wind shear wise, not a whole lot there in the mid-Gulf. So you kind of combine that with the very warm, ocean heat content and sea surface temperatures. Is it, the perfect setup for a tropical system to develop? Not perfect, but it is, I would say, somewhat favorable until we get, a little bit later in the week. It looks like some of the wind shear kind of works its way a little bit, further west in the Gulf there. So just a couple things, we're looking at.
Yeah, and with the steering, great point. So I want folks, you're seeing the yellow hatched area of concern for the Hurricane Center, and you're seeing the potential of a tropical developing system. I want folks to kind of, if you live in Northeast Florida, sort of put in your back pocket that steering currents, all the kind of ingredients right now, what with the positioning of our high pressure over the mid-Atlantic, everything is pushing this. So if development does occur, it's still not a direct story for us. This isn't one of those situations where this thing will develop in the Gulf and then trek back to the east and move up through Tampa and through Jacksonville. It's not that situation. More and more confidence growing that this low will essentially, if and when it does fully develop, would become more of a coastal Louisiana or even as far west as Texas type rainmaking event for them. Now, still rainmaker for us. Our impacts don't really change as that tropical air gets pulled in, but there's your spin. And this is a great graphic, Ross, kind of explaining, the orientation, the track, a little more north, less time, a little more south, a little more time for a potential stronger storm.
Yeah, and essentially the more time spent over land and the less time over water, the lesser of a chance you have for tropical development. So a more northern track, it's going to spend some more time over land, less over waters in the northern Gulf. So tropical development going to be lesser. Whereas, if it takes a much more southerly or southwesterly track and it gets down a little bit closer to the mid-Gulf and then begins its trek north, I mean, that's, a lot of fetch over, or, space and time over the open ocean. And that would be, a little bit worrisome. But I would say most of the longer range models, Lew, haven't really shown
they haven't.
anything that far south. So I'm really not leaning towards, the red track there. It's more than likely going to be either the yellow or orange based off of, the majority of what we're looking at. Plus, the National Hurricane Center still only has a 30% chance over the next 7 days. So,
right.
We also have to, lean on them a little bit in this instance as well.
As we watch, though, and if it were to get a name, this would be Dexter. So we'll think a potential D-storm there. If again, even that middle track, you spend a time over that 88, 89 degree water, and even as it gets closer to shore, we've seen these get strong quick, and so we'll watch. And that word hurricane remains in the back of my mind just a little bit, but that would again be more for Louisiana, perhaps Texas. So the moisture coming, the beginning of this graphic showing that dry slot for an early Tuesday morning, but man, those 2 inch and above PWATs really trying to work their way into Northeast Florida. Now Thursday, I know your eye directly goes to that red area, right? Because that's your center, and that would be the potential tropical system. But I'm also looking for Northeast Florida Thursday, and we see a little dry air try to push in. So while the afternoon will be hot and humid, of course, and could spark a thunderstorm or two, things looking a little more favorable for us as that thing moves well away by Thursday and becomes a non-story for us here in Northeast Florida. But some rainfall rates have jumped. That's model in particular has jumped a bit since earlier this morning. So including now southern areas, Bradford and Union County specifically, Clay, Putnam, and even parts of St. John's could get into that 2 to 3 inch range. But I think that's kind of top end in isolated pockets.
Yeah.
Certainly could be more, certainly could be less, but that's interesting to see.
And the key takeaways here, right? It's going to be a little bit breezier tomorrow, especially out at the beaches, and we're just going to have more with regards to rain and thunderstorms over the next, I would say, 2.5 days. That's why we have the weather impact alerts in effect, for the rest of today, for Tuesday, and also there for your Wednesday as well. We're keeping the heat and humidity in check, but it's really just going to